Pool balls do not behave like your geometry textbook. Do you long for a more complete explanation of how to play position on pool shots, rather than just someone demonstrating a bunch of random shots? This video is my basic position tutorial for beginner to intermediate players. A wealth of detailed information is organized into 4 topics. You can take notes all at once or refer back to it when needed. You'll want to watch all the way through because 5 tips along the way help you play better position and pocket a tricky shot. The 4 topics are cue ball actions, how you make the cue ball move around, position concepts, some definitions and descriptions of the angles, position control, techniques for control and examples of my 5 shot types, and position routes. That's demonstrations of 0, 1, 2, and 3 rail positional routes around the pool table. An index in the description has links to each section. This is a long video, so let's go. A quick review of cue ball jargon and how we control the cue ball is in order. I made a thorough video about this topic that's very graphics driven, and I'll put a link to that in the description. I just want to do some examples here in real time to set a baseline for what we're going to talk about in a moment. Pool players are always asking, should I spin the cue ball or should I stay on the vertical center line of the cue ball? My answer is don't spin the cue ball unless if you need to spin the cue ball. What do I mean? Well, look at the pool balls. They're round. Guess what? As you strike the cue ball with your Q-tip, and as the cue ball hits other balls, and as the cue ball comes in contact with the rails and the friction of the cloth, the cue ball is going to spin. It's a round object. They're all round objects. They will spin. So you might as well learn how to deal with that. As a beginner, you'll want to stay in the vertical center line of the cue ball. Then as you get more adept, you'll add some skills where you're striking the cue ball left or right of center. But I want to give you one important tip that'll be useful to you throughout your pool career, and that's this. Imagine you have a shot on the 14 ball, but it's kind of thin. You want to play position for the 15 ball next. What you could do, shoot the 14 ball with low right English, bring the cue ball off the side rail and this side rail, and over here, just perfect position on this 15 ball. There's 2 dangers with that. First of all, playing to a very small position zone. What if you hit it too soft and your cue ball stops here? Now you don't have such a good shot. What if you hit it too hard and your cue ball stops here? Well, now you don't have a shot at all. The second problem with this shot is it's a thin cut shot. If you try to do too much with the shot, you risk missing the ball. So the tip is this: never sacrifice pocketing the ball to get good position. What if you simply stay on the center line of the cue ball, just cut the 14 in, let the cue ball come across side rails out to about here? That position is good enough, isn't it? Don't risk missing the shot. The phrase center ball is used and abused perhaps more than any other in pool. When on a shot, the cue ball has a horizontal and vertical axis, often depicted like this cue ball, except that only works if your cue stick is parallel to the table bed, which it rarely is. Center ball is the intersection of the cue ball's horizontal axis that is parallel to your cue stick angle and the cue ball's vertical axis that is parallel to your cue stick's direction. Since your eyes are located above the cue stick, practice is needed to visualize where your cue stick is actually pointing on the cue ball. Pool balls can slide or roll or spin on any axis. Enough speed to overcome friction is needed for a ball to slide, but friction will eventually cause all sliding balls to roll, unless acted on by another force first. Spin along the travel direction causes the ball to rotate in place before rolling, and then travel farther than a ball with less spin. Spin in other directions can persist while the ball slides or rolls, depending on speed, friction, and amount of spin applied. The stop shot, where the cue ball stops in place on a straight-in shot, happens when the cue ball is struck at or below center, such that it is sliding at the moment of object-ball contact. A cue ball struck just barely above center will roll forward slightly after object ball contact. A rolling cue ball will hesitate before rolling forward. A follow shot when the cue ball is struck above center and a draw shot when the cue ball is struck below center must both be struck with enough force that the momentum of the spin persists at object ball contact. In general, striking the cue ball below center, but not with enough spin or force to create backspin, slows the cue ball down and is used to hold or limit cue ball movement on cut shots, while striking the cue ball above center is used to cause the cue ball to move or run. Viewed from above, striking the cue ball right of its vertical axis creates right spin, also called side spin or English, causing the cue ball to spin counterclockwise. Left English creates clockwise spin. Side spin increases the cue ball's rebound angle off a rail in the direction of the spin. Spin in the direction of the entry angle is called running English. Spin opposite the entry angle is called reverse English and decreases the rebound angle.
Position concepts. From here on out, this video is going to be me demonstrating shots on the pool table. No more of the on-screen graphics. We're going to talk about some definitions real quick. I'm going to give you my tip number 2, and then I'll talk about the angles. The first definition I need to give you is the tangent line. And if you're already familiar with some of these, please be patient. I just need to quickly set a baseline for everyone who's watching the video. The tangent line, coincidentally, helps us establish a baseline for figuring out where the cue ball is going to go on any cut shot. Real simple. The tangent line is determined first by the object ball's relationship to the pocket. So if you draw a line from the center of the pocket through the center of the object ball, and then you look at the ghost ball position, the ghost ball is where the cue ball needs to contact the object ball to make it in the pocket. You look at a line that's 90 degrees from that line, from the shot line, through the center of the ghost ball, and that's the tangent line. It's always a 90-degree line. There are no exceptions. If your cue ball is approaching the cut angle from this side, then your cue ball, the tangent line for your shot is in this direction. But if your cue ball is approaching from the other side, then your tangent line is in this direction. But it's important to know the 90 degrees of the tangent line, because that's the path that your cue ball will take if it's sliding when it hits the object ball. If you're shooting with topspin is going to make your cue ball go forward of the tangent line. If your cue ball has backspin on it when it strikes the object ball, then your cue ball will come this direction. It will go backward of the tangent line. Understanding the tangent line helps us remember what we call natural position. Natural position is where the cue ball will go on a shot if you don't exert any extreme spin like topspin or backspin. So natural position would be the route that it takes from a sliding ball, took it to the rail right here, to a rolling cue ball. And that one right here. Those are both natural position because that's where the cue ball is going to go anyway. Next, I want to define inside and outside cut angles, and that's going to be very helpful when you're learning speed control. The thicker the cut angle is, that is, the less angle you have to the object ball, the slower the cue ball is going to move after it collides with the object ball. The thinner your cut angle, the more degrees of cut angle that you have, the faster the object ball is going to move. So a thicker hit is an outside angle. A thin hit is an inside angle. We could define it a little bit more precisely than that. When your cue ball is rolling, that's generally when you're hitting it above center or hitting it softer, anything from 0 to 33 degrees is an outside cut angle. When you get over 33 degrees with a rolling cue ball, then the cue ball leaves the collision faster, and that's an inside cut angle. It's a little bit different when you have a sliding cue ball. That's going to happen when you shoot a stun shot, or you shoot a draw shot or a follow shot with a considerable amount of speed. And then it's from 0 to 45 degrees is an outside angle. It's an inside angle once you get thinner than 45 degrees with a sliding cue ball. When learning your cut angles, it's helpful to divide them into 3 categories: from 0 to 15 degrees, 15 to 30, and 30 degrees and more. Well, you might say, well, how the heck am I can't measure the angle while I'm shooting. There's a really cool feature of spherical geometry. When the cut angle is 30 degrees, aiming your cue stick through the center of the cue ball, pointed at the edge of the object ball, will pocket that shot. Obviously, when the cue ball is lined up straight into the pocket through the center of the object ball, that's 0 degrees. And then 15 degrees will be halfway between those two. So we have cut shots from 0 to 15, 15 to 30, and then over 30. And it's helpful to separate your cut shots into those 3 categories, both when you're practicing aiming and when you're practicing position. When you have a thick cut angle from 0 to 15 degrees, there's lots of things that you can do to hold the cue ball in this area or to make it travel. You have an angle between 15 and 30 degrees, your cue ball is going to travel. You're not going to be able to hold it here. But when your cue ball is 30 degrees or more, your cue ball is definitely going to be traveling, and you have to learn how to play position when your cue ball is contacting the rail and learning where it's going to go. We also need to cover a few terms having to do with the pool table, and I know most of you know this already, but just for completeness. The pool table is a rectangle, but yes, it is indeed 2 perfect squares. So for example, on my 9-foot table, the dimensions of the playing area that's measured from the nose of the rails is 50 inches by 100 inches. So it's 2 squares. We call these the short rails, the ones on the 50-inch length. Then there's 2 long rails. It's helpful to think about this for 2 reasons. First of all, being a perfect square, when you use your cue stick and point it from one corner pocket to a side pocket, that's a 45-degree angle. So if you're looking at a cut shot and you're not quite sure, is that 45 or 30 or 36 and a half? Well, you can just point your cue stick at from a corner pocket to a side pocket, compare that line to the line between your cue ball and the ghost ball of the cut shot, and it gives you a good estimate. And there's another angle that's built into the pool table. Line up the cue stick from the corner pocket to the first diamond on the long rail opposite. That's a 30-degree cut angle. The other reason that it comes in handy, especially when you're learning your cut shots and playing position, you can divide the table into 2 halves that are each a square, but then you can divide that further into 4 more squares, vertically and horizontally from the second diamond. So most of your normal cut shots that you're shooting into corner pockets are going to take place in this area. So begin practicing your cut shots here, and only after you develop some skill there do you move to cut shots to the corner pocket from these 2 quadrants of the table. And then as far as the 4 quadrants that are located in the center of the table, I want to think about playing balls here from the center of the quadrants to the side pocket. Those are balls that are open to the side pocket. Whereas balls that are in this area, we tend to want to shoot those into a corner pocket. So it's just a way of dividing up your work and simplifying so that the large rectangle of the pool table doesn't seem so daunting. And the last term I want to describe is short side. What does that mean? Well, let's take a look at a cut shot that's in this quadrant. If an object ball is located anywhere in this quadrant, you're most likely going to want to shoot that ball in this corner pocket. It's the closest pocket. There are times, however, for example, there's a ball in the way, or there's some other situation going on where you need to play short side. Short side means instead of pocketing this object ball into the obvious pocket, we're playing position over here to shoot it into that one, across zone into the other zone. This is short side position because you have only a short distance to work with. Now let's talk about angles. And from here on out, it's just going to be me at the table shooting shots. There won't be any graphics unless I want to put a little something up in the corner of the screen. First, I want to give you my tip number 2.
And this is an answer to the same question. Should I spin the cue ball or just stay on the vertical center line? And I said the answer was both. Here's an example where I'm shooting the 5 ball. Where does the cue ball go if I just shoot center ball, horizontal center and vertical center? I can play speed control. We know that the tangent line is this direction. It's 90 degrees to the shot line. Angle out equals angle in. So my cue ball is going to come this way. So I can play speed control so that my cue ball comes somewhere in here, and I'll have a shot on the 2 ball or the 6 ball. So I don't need any side spin to pocket the ball. So from here, I have a shot on the 6, the 2, or the 3. What if I want to play position on this 4 ball here? Well, I don't want to just hit the ball harder, because if the cue ball comes farther on the same line, I could hit the 2 ball and the 1 ball. I need the cue ball to come on this line to get position. So I want to use some right side spin to open up this angle. So I'm using right side spin, not to pocket the ball, but to control the cue ball. So now I've got a good shot on the 4 ball. What if I want to play position for this 3 ball? Well, then instead of the cue ball coming this way, I want it to come shorter. So I want to use some left spin to shorten the angle off the rail. So I'm not using side spin to pocket the ball. I'm just using side spin to control the cue ball. Don't use side spin to pocket the ball. Only use side spin when you need it to help control the cue ball. The late, great Danny DiLiberto is famous for saying, you want to get an angle for an angle for an angle. What's he talking about? Well, I've got a real simple example here from a game of 9 ball. What many beginners and intermediate players will do, they'll look at this 6 ball and say, wow, natural position comes right up here for the 7 ball. Great. So we get down and we shoot the 6 ball. The cue ball comes right up here, straight in on the 7 ball. Now, we've got to pull off some kind of shot. I've got to follow forward to the rail or draw the cue ball back and try and get some kind of shape on that 8 ball. What happened was I got too straight on the 7 ball. I need an angle. I need an angle on the 7 ball, so I prefer to be somewhere near center of table. So in this case, I want to shoot with topspin, maybe a little bit of right English, to make the cue ball just come straight off that bottom rail. I much prefer this shot than with the cue ball right here, because now I've got an angle on the 7 ball. Where is my cue ball going to go naturally? It's going to come back this way across table. Don't make the same mistake and get straight in on that 8 ball. Need an angle to get back across table. I've got a small angle here. A little bit bigger one would have been nicer. Now, getting straight in on the 9 ball is okay. Another pool term that you might have heard is the position triangle. This has a lot to do with angles as well. I've got an example here in the game of 8 ball. I just have 2 solids left and then the 8 to win the game. Well, I've got an easy straight in shot on the 6, and if I play a stop shot, I'm pretty close to straight in on the 7, which means I've got to draw my cue ball back to get on the 8 ball. Instead of doing that, we want to think about the position triangle. So I'm looking 3 shots ahead. I need to play an angle for an angle. But what angle? Look at the 8 ball. Where would you like the cue ball to be to pocket the 8? It's somewhere in this area. Well, let's refine that a little further. If we point our cue stick here, my cue ball's anywhere in this area. I'm pivoting around the 8 ball. That's good position. That's where I'd like my cue ball to be. Well, if you draw a line from here to the 8 ball to here and here, I've just created a triangle. And if my cue ball enters the triangle on the narrow base of the triangle, in this direction, or this direction, or this direction, all of those are heading into the shot triangle. So I know that as long as I get close to that, I'm going to have good position on my 8 ball. So If I draw the cue ball back, I'm going to have an angle on the 7 ball where my cue ball naturally goes to the bottom rail, comes up this way, right at the shot triangle. If instead I were to follow the cue ball forward and shoot the 7 ball from here, then my cue ball would go to this rail, then it's coming in this direction and it's coming across the shot triangle. This is why you always want to look 2 to 3 balls ahead, so you get that angle for an angle for an angle. So now I know that I'd much prefer to shoot this 6 ball and draw my cue ball back just a little bit. Now when I shoot the 7, I have to draw the cue ball back or do something exotic. It's naturally going to come this way into the shot triangle. The advantage to the shot triangle is, since I'm coming right into the triangle, after my cue ball leaves the rail, I have a shot on the 8 ball from here. And I still have a shot. And I still have a shot. And I still have a shot. My shot keeps getting better. And even if I hit it a little bit too hard, I still have a shot. I still have a shot. I still have a shot. Because I was coming into the shot triangle. Let's take this same example one step further. I've got the angle that I want on the 7 to come into the position triangle for the 8. But this time, it's a game of 9 ball. So I don't want to be straight in on the 8 ball. I want to have an angle on the 8 to get over there for the 9 ball. What you're thinking about in these instances is this line. This is the shot line. So you always want to decide when you're looking at your position triangle, which side of the shot line do I want to be on? I have a shot triangle that's on this side, and I have a different one that's on this side. Let's play for the inside angle. So I'll add a little bit of left English to get the cue ball over to the rail. So I'm coming into my shot triangle, but I played to the shot triangle that's on this side of the 8 ball. Now my cue ball goes naturally over to the 9 ball. What if I prefer the other shot triangle, or there's a ball in the way? Well, in that case, like the first example of an angle for an angle, I just come straight up the table. I'm playing into this shot triangle, avoiding any balls that might have been over here, and I have an angle to come across for the 9 ball. You don't always have to play position into the shot triangle. Sometimes you play position out of the shot triangle. Here's an example of what I'm talking about. There's another rule here, and that's that distance matters. This is a game of 9 ball. I can shoot from the 6. Here's the shot line to the 8 ball. Obviously, I want to stay on this side of the 8 ball so I can get to the 9. So my shot triangle's in this area. Well, you might shoot the 6 ball, send the cue ball to the rail and up here, and if you don't hit it with enough speed, your cue ball could stop right here. Now you have an extremely thin cut shot into the side pocket. Very difficult to make and very difficult to hold the cue ball for the 9 ball. Well, what went wrong? 2 things. Our shot triangle is here. In this case, we can't play position into the shot triangle, but we can play position out of the shot triangle. In other words, the base of the triangle is over here, so we want to play our cue ball over to this area, not just on this side. So distance matters, because if you're close to the ball but still in your shot triangle, you could have a very, very thin cut shot. But if you play to the far end of the triangle, I've got a large position zone, and I'm always going to be on the correct side of the object ball with an easy shot to get up for the 9. The other thing to be aware of is this. This leg of your shot triangle is not here. The shot triangle, the apex of the shot triangle, is from the ghost ball. So this leg of the triangle goes through the ghost ball, but the other leg of your position triangle goes here, not through the object ball, through the ghost ball. So if you keep that in mind, you'll have a much better idea of where your triangle is. When you play that 6 ball, you can come out of the shot triangle towards the leg and always have a good angle on that next shot. Tip number 3 also has to do with angles, and the tip is inside angles are very powerful. Here's an example. Game's 9 ball. It looks like all I need to do is shoot a stop shot on the 7, and I'll have the angle that I need to move the cue ball up table. And it's true, you will have an angle, but you're going to have to play exacting position to try and get the cue ball to come all the way up here, or draw it around, or come up on this side of the 9 ball. Instead, why not shoot the 7 ball and follow the cue ball down to the bottom rail? Inside angle on the 8 ball. So I don't have to stroke it really hard to drive it to this rail and get the cue ball up table. Instead, I can just play one rail position here up to the 9. What if I'm playing a different game and there's some balls in the way here? Well, I can go to this side rail and across table to that one. Both of these are more natural position because the cue ball is going that way anyway. Another natural option might be to just draw the cue ball right up that side rail. Even when the object ball is very close to the rail, you can still get inside. You don't need to hit this 7 ball really hard to bounce the cue ball out to get an angle. Instead, use some outside spin and just hold the cue ball right on the rail. This angle is all that you need to move the cue ball up table or anywhere that you like. And additionally, since it's not a big angle, if you need to, you can hold the cue ball down table. I can follow forward and across and keep the cue ball down on this side. I can hold the cue ball right here below the rack. I can draw the cue ball all the way back over to this side of the table. I can send the cue ball up to the center of the table without touching a rail. Or I can play position to any number of position triangles up table. Don't be afraid to give yourself an inside angle. Even a slight one like this is really powerful. Now let's talk about position control, which I've divided into 2 sections, technique and shots. Remember, this is kind of a glossary. I'm just going through a list of things that you need to know, which will apply to playing position from different shots in this video and in upcoming videos. The most important technique that you need to master to get really good position control, that's control of the speed and direction of the cue ball, is a slow backstroke. The amount of time it takes you to draw your cue back before you shoot. This is what it looks like without a slow backstroke. So we'll do our warm-ups, and we're ready to shoot. We just do a quick shot. And I don't get a lot of control over where my cue tip contacted the cue ball or in how hard I'm hitting the shot. Let's do it with a slow backstroke. So I do my warm-up strokes the same as always. I'm going to pause at the cue ball and bring that cue stick back slowly. I can't stress how important it is. The difference between a slow backstroke and a quick delivery is night and day. Hand in hand with a slow backstroke is your backstroke length. That's how you can gauge how hard you're hitting the ball. For example, if I'm just shooting this short shot and I just want to stop the cue ball, I don't need to have a long backstroke like that in order to stop it. It's kind of overkill. Because the object ball is not traveling very far and the cue ball is not traveling far, I can use a short backstroke. And a good way to reinforce that when you're playing is to set up with your bridge hand closer to the object ball. Then you actually can't draw your cue stick back too far. So I can stop the cue ball here by putting my bridge hand real close, and then I just have a really short backstroke. And the cue ball stops perfectly. Let's compare that to an example where the cue ball is traveling much farther to reach the object ball. Now, if I want to shoot a stop shot, if I shoot with the same technique with a short bridge and a short backstroke, the cue ball won't stop. Don't think that you need to haul off and hit it hard, because then you're going to start losing control. If the cue ball has to travel farther, just adjust your bridge length. So I'll use, instead of being up close, maybe a 3/4 bridge length. And now I can pull my cue stick all the way back to here, so that when I follow through, the cue ball's traveling far, the cue stick is traveling farther. So I'll naturally get more speed without having to muscle up on the shot. So longer bridge length. When I'm ready to shoot, nice and slow, bring it all the way back. And I get all the speed that I need to stop the cue ball. That was an example of using bridge length to control the cue ball depending on how far the cue ball has to travel to get to the object ball. But the same exact technique works when we want to control how far the cue ball travels after it hits the object ball. So here's a simple cut shot, and I'm going to use a short bridge length so that I can only pull my cue stick back a short distance. So the cue ball has traveled across the table and hit the rail about here. This time I'm going to have a longer bridge length, and I'll just pull my cue stick back farther, but I won't hit the shot any harder with my muscles. You can see the cue ball took the exact same path, but it traveled much farther. I didn't have to figure out how hard to hit it by gauging how hard I'm tensing my muscles. Just adjust your backstroke length, then every shot can be hit just as smoothly. The next technique I want to talk about is cheating the pocket. Yes, pool players are allowed to cheat, but this is the only way. I think a lot of you know what this means. If I have a straight in shot and I shoot the object ball into the center of the pocket, the cue ball is just going to stop right there. It won't move to the left or the right. But let's say that I want to play position on this ball next. Well, I want my cue ball to move to the right. But in order to do that, I can cut the object ball to the left. So I'm cheating the pocket to the left side. That should make my cue ball go to the right. We can also cheat the pocket when we're not straight in. So for example, if I shoot this shot into the center of the pocket, my cue ball is going to go to the left. But I want my cue ball to stop dead. Well, cheat the pocket. Instead of cutting it, I can shoot it almost dead straight into the left side of the pocket, and then my cue ball will stop instead of going to the side. There's also a downside to cheating the pocket. For example, sometimes when you're practicing position, the cue ball doesn't go where you thought it would go. Well, the reason might be that you accidentally cheated the pocket. So if I have a cut shot, for example, I know that if I shoot the object ball into the center of the pocket, the cue ball is going to travel along the 90-degree tangent line. But if I accidentally or on purpose overcut the object ball, that would be cheating it to the left side of the pocket. So if I overcut this ball, my cue ball goes to the rail quicker because instead of the tangent line being in this direction, it was this direction. Conversely, try to set up the same shot. If I undercut the ball, that'll be cheating it to the right side of the pocket. Then my cue ball is going to take a different path. It's going to follow a different tangent line. Then instead of going to the rail here, it goes to the rail here and goes wider. So that was achieved by hitting the cue ball in the exact same spot, but by cheating the pocket either to the left, the center, or the right. The next technique I want to talk about is shooting at the bottom of the cue ball. Earlier, I talked about a drag draw shot. So I had a straight in stop shot where the cue ball was traveling a long distance. The first time I shot it, the cue ball followed the 10 ball into the pocket. Well, what if you have a cut shot? There might be an instance where your cue ball needs to travel a long distance to get to the object ball. If I shoot this with a normal stroke, my cue ball is going to hit the bottom rail and come over here somewhere. But what if I want to keep the cue ball down here? Use that drag draw technique. Shoot softly and hit the cue ball all the way at the bottom,
Watch the cue ball as it starts to backspin and then it rolls by the time it gets to the 10 ball. Right at the bottom of the cue ball, and with a soft stroke, I can keep the cue ball under control right down there. We call that a drag draw stroke when the cue ball travels a long distance to get to the object ball. But on today's fast pool table claws, shooting at the bottom of the cue ball slows it down and helps us control the speed of the cue ball so it doesn't run away on us. Here's a quick example. Here's a cut shot. And first I'll shoot this with a center ball and just a medium soft speed. So because it was a cut shot, my cue ball's traveling a long distance. It came way past center table. This time I'm going to shoot it with the same speed, but I'll aim at the very bottom of the cue ball. My cue ball didn't even make it to the center of the table. Now that wasn't a draw stroke because the cue ball didn't have backspin on it when it got to the object ball because of how soft I hit it. So shooting at the bottom of the cue ball slows it down and helps you to keep it under control. I'm going to use the 4 ball so that we place the cue ball in the same spot every time. The object ball's at the second diamond, 1 ball diameter off the rail. So I'm going to shoot this shot with a normal stroke, just a medium speed, right at the center of the cue ball with a medium length bridge. And pay attention to the distance and direction the cue ball travels. Came straight off the rail and just past where the 4 ball is. Let's set up the exact same shot. This time I'm going to use the same speed and the same bridge length, but I'm going to hit the cue ball all the way at the bottom, not hard enough to draw the ball. The cue ball didn't come anywhere near as far off from the rail. Let's look at one more example, set up the exact same shot. This time I will do a draw stroke, so I want to hit it with more speed so that the cue ball is spinning backwards when it gets to the object ball. So I don't need to muscle up my muscle. Let's just make our bridge length a little bit longer so that we can get a little more speed on the cue ball. Now look at the direction and the distance that the cue ball travels. On today's modern equipment with these fast claws, you've really got to be a master of controlling the cue ball in order to master playing position. And that's going to be controlling the cue tip position in combination with the speed of the shot. The last technique I want to talk about is the fact that draw and follow curves the path of the cue ball after it leaves the object ball. Now, on many of your shots, you're not really going to notice it that much, but I'll give you a demonstration here. I'll put the object ball in the corner of the rack, and I've got a spot here for the cue ball. So I'm going to shoot this with a medium power shot. I'll shoot a draw stroke. So we're going to see the cue ball at first travel on the tangent line, which is 90 degrees, and then it'll curve and it'll head up table somewhere. Okay? So it was a very slight curve, and then it traveled straight from the end of the curve to the rail and to this position. Now I've got the exact same shot. I'm going to use a longer bridge and hit it with more speed. This is straight at the bottom of the cue ball, draw stroke. You could really see the curve that time, couldn't you? The cue ball traveled a longer distance along the tangent line, but then when it started to curve, it curved a longer distance. And then you saw it hook, and then from that point, it went straight. Draw and follow curves the cue ball every time, whether you notice it or not. Let's compare a follow stroke with the same shot. So here's a medium speed, just shooting at the top center of the cue ball. Cue ball hits the rail here and right at the side pocket. Now I'm going to hit it much harder with a longer bridge length. See that the cue ball came off at a shorter angle. So it stayed on the tangent line, but then there was more curve, which made it go into the rail sooner and take a shorter path than when I hit it softer. The second type of position control is shot types. So I'm just going to quickly show you a list of my 5 shot types. Every single shot that you will ever shoot on the pool table can be categorized into one of these 5 types. So if you simplify things in this fashion, it's going to make it much easier to learn position and to apply techniques from one shot type to the next as appropriate. The 5 shot types are frozen balls, rail shots, bounce shots, cut shots, and wing shots. I think the frozen one goes without explanation. It's whenever an object ball is frozen to the rail. The second shot type is a rail shot. So that's when the object ball is near the rail, but not frozen to it. When I say near the rail, probably 1 ball diameter or less. So even if the object ball is only 1/8 of an inch off the rail, it opens up different possibilities for what you can do with the cue ball compared to a frozen rail shot. When the object ball is a little bit farther away, we call that a bounce shot. Now, there's some overlap between rail shots and bounce shots, but I call it a bounce shot because after shooting the object ball, the cue ball gets to the rail quickly. So that's how you differentiate a bounce shot from a cut shot, such as this one, where the cue ball will get to the rail, or maybe we'll manipulate it so it doesn't get to the rail. But in a bounce shot, you're playing the cue ball off the rail and you're bouncing it off the rail, or sometimes you're killing it or slowing down the speed to hold it near the rail, but you're able to manipulate it in that fashion. The fourth type of shot is the cut shot. As I mentioned, the object ball is farther from the rail. So we can still shoot shots where we're slowing down the cue ball and holding it here, or making the cue ball hit this rail and travel a long distance. But the cue ball isn't going quickly to the rail because it's a cut shot. The object ball is much more in the open in a variety of positions in the table. The fifth type of shot I call the wing shot. The wing shot is an inside angle. So often it's an object ball that's closer to the rail, but it doesn't have to be. But rather than being a bounce angle that goes off the rail, you have an inside angle. So this is a wing shot because we call it a wing shot because the cue ball is traveling this way, and kind of the path of the cue ball kind of makes a wing shape. There's a lot of different things you can do with the wing shot. Use some right spin to help throw it in, and just kind of hold the cue ball and just control it right here. I can also not use right English, hit it in the center, so I'm cutting the ball more, and then I can play the cue ball all the way to the side rail and back up table. I should give you a couple examples of each real quickly. Obviously, I want to go into more detail on these topics in future videos. It's often assumed that in order to make a frozen rail shot, you need to use right English on the cue ball because that puts left spin on the object ball and makes it hug the rail. I'll let you talk to Dr. Dave and see if he thinks that's true or not. But I'll tell you that you can forget about that kind of thing. What you want to do is hit the rail and the object ball at the same time. And if you don't time it exactly perfect, you want to hit the rail just a micro fraction before the object ball. Then the object ball will go in. So you do need to aim accurately. And for position, we can do a variety of things. If I shoot with a sliding cue ball, with a center ball, the cue ball should come close to perpendicular to the rail. Like that. Obviously, if I shoot with top spin, the cue ball is going to go forward. If I shoot with draw, the cue ball is going to come back. You can use outside English, so that would be left spin on this frozen rail shot. The left spin is not going to throw the object ball away from the rail. Remember, we use spin to control the cue ball, not to pocket the object ball. So first I'll shoot this with a straight draw stroke. So I'm shooting in the center of the cue ball at the bottom to draw the cue ball. Let's say where it hits the rail, right about at the center diamond. Now, same shot. This time I'm going to draw the cue ball with left spin. Notice the cue ball came up a little bit higher. That's because the left spin opened up the angle off the rail. Oh, just a quick primer on rail shots. Remember, the object ball is within a ball diameter from the rail. So the object ball is coming into the pocket at a shallow angle. This is a ball that we can cheat the pocket more than any other ball, because we can brush the rail depending on the width of your pockets and whether or not it's a diamond table, and the object ball will still go in the pocket. So by using outside spin and almost shooting straight at that object ball, I can hold the cue ball right here and the object ball still goes in. Of course, that only works if I don't hit it too hard that I rattle the ball. Now let's shoot the same shot, but this time we'll cheat the pocket a little. We're going to miss the rail. We want to try and hit the facing and shoot the object ball straight down into the center of the pocket with the same stroke as before. This time, rather than the cue ball holding right here on the rail, it bounced off the rail a little bit. What you want to be aware of with rail shots is that they aren't like bounce shots. So if you have an angle like this, but you need the cue ball to travel all the way across the table, you're going to find it very difficult to do with a rail ball within a ball diameter with this angle. It takes a lot of speed to get that cue ball to come off the rail. But with a bounce shot, so my object ball is more than a ball diameter away from the rail, and I have an angle, approximately the same angle on the object ball. Because I'm cutting the object ball a little bit more, now it's easier to bounce the cue ball across the table. And that's the reason why you should separate rail shots from bounce shots in your practice routines. The way that you play position is a little bit different. Then with cut shots, where the cue ball is in the open field of the table, most of the time we're cutting the ball. Our object ball is going to go to a short rail, or it can go to a long rail. And so now we're playing positional routes of 1 or 2 or 3 rails to move the cue ball around the table. That's why this is a different class of shot than frozen, rail, or bounce shots. If I shoot a natural cue ball, just a center ball, my cue ball takes a natural angle around the table, in this case coming right through the center of the table. Try and set up the same shot. Shooting a little bit below center, my cue ball is going to hit closer to the pocket. Tighter angle, so instead of coming towards the center of the table, it's coming short. Now a cut shot where I use top spin on the cue ball. Coming this way through the center, the cue ball is coming long on the shot. And that's why cut shots should be practiced as a different type of shot from frozen, rail, and bounce shots. It's time for tip number 4, which I call fight for the angle. Here's an example, game of 9 ball. I got the 7, 8, 9. Should be easy to shoot in that 7, come down here for the 8, and then go back up for the 9, right? Let's give it a try. Nicely down here for the 8 ball, and I'm straight in on the 8. How in the world am I going to get the cue ball back up there for the 9? You've seen this happen even in pro tournaments, and oftentimes the player will pull off some fancy shot and they'll actually make this 8 ball and get up there for the 9. But more often than not, they won't. Do you want to put in extra work now when you have a bad angle on the 8 ball? Wouldn't it be better to put in more work when you're shooting the 7 ball so that you get the right angle? Rather than fighting for the shot when I get a bad angle on the 8 ball, let's put in the work on the 7 ball. Let's fight for the angle now. So rather than just getting down and shooting quickly, I want to take a look and say, okay, I don't want short side position because that area is too small. But an angle somewhere over here where my cue ball is hitting this rail and heading into the position zone, then I'll have a good angle to transition back up for the 9. And I might even want to walk over here and say, okay, when I shoot the 7, my cue ball is going to hit here, and then I want it to go this way. Not this way, not that way, that way. So that's fighting for the angle. We're making a much clearer picture in our mind of exactly what we want. Now I'm hitting the rail, off the rail, and I've got shallower than I really intended. My cue ball hit here rather than here. But because I was fighting for the angle, my cue ball isn't down here where it's straight in. And I have enough angle
to easily get back up for the 9-ball. And finally, positional routes. By routes, I mean how the cue ball moves around the table from shot to shot. Congratulations if you made it this far. Remember, oriented more towards beginners. So rather than show you some shots, which I will be demonstrating the cue ball movement in a moment, but rather than show you a bunch of different shots, I want to give you a way to think about how the cue ball moves around the table, which then you can apply to any shot. You may have heard the phrases down table and up table. Remember, the pool table is a rectangle divided into 2 squares. The foot end of the table, which is where you rack the balls, that's down table. The square where you put the cue ball for the break shot, that's the head end of the table, and that's up table. When you begin to learn position, you want to think about the routes that the cue ball takes around the table in terms of contacting the rails. And the cue ball is either going to contact 0, 1 rail, 2 rails, or 3 rails. We often use the terms long and short interchangeably. So I mentioned this earlier. If you have an object ball that's on this side of the table, this is normal position, which is long position. And short side position would be where you're shooting the object ball to the pocket that's a longer distance away. We also use the words long and short to refer to the angle that the cue ball takes off the rail. For example, if I'm going to cut this 9-ball in the pocket and I bring the cue ball pretty much right across table, like that, my cue ball has taken a short angle off the rail. In comparison, I'll have the same shot, and if my cue ball comes wider off, comes down this way, that's long position. So short is a shorter angle, long is a longer angle. And I'll have some more examples of those in a minute. I already talked about natural position, and that's where the cue ball is going to naturally go along the tangent line. We also use the word natural when we talk about how the cue ball moves around the table. What I'm talking about is a natural route around the table always goes either short rail, short rail, or long rail, short rail, long rail. Those are 3-rail positional routes. So what I mean is this. If I'm cutting the 3-ball in the pocket, and I won't shoot it, I'm just going to demonstrate the cue ball's path. The cue ball is going to leave the 3-ball here. And if the cue ball travels short rail, long rail, short rail, that's a natural route around the table. But if I cut this 3-ball and instead maybe I draw it a little bit so the cue ball goes tighter in the corner, now it's hitting short rail, long rail, long rail. So that's not a natural rail. It's coming into this at a reverse angle. And the same thing is true in the other direction. If the cue ball hits long, short, long, that's a natural route around the table. And then it's always alternating. So after a long rail, it hit a short rail. So that's a natural route around the table. But if I hit long rail, short, long rail, that's natural. And then when it gets to this rail, that's reverse. And the third thing to remember about playing position off the rails is that the cue ball always picks up spin when it contacts the rail. And it's going to spin in the direction of its movement. So if it's coming at this angle, you can imagine there's a little friction here that's going to pull on the cue ball a little bit and make it spin this way. So if it's coming in at this angle, the cue ball is going to pick up a little bit of right spin when it leaves that rail. If the cue ball is coming in this direction, it'll pick up a little bit of left spin heading in that direction. The shallower the angle, the more friction there is. If the cue ball is coming in at a steep angle and then leaving at a steep angle, it doesn't pick up very much running spin at all. Let's talk about 0 rails. What am I talking about? 0 rail, I'm just talking about any shot where you cut an object ball or you shoot it straight and the cue ball leaves the object ball, but it never touches a rail. And if you're a beginner to pool, your instructor probably already has you shooting shots like this. For example, you might be just shooting a simple shot like this to practice stopping the cue ball or drawing it back into this pocket or following into that pocket. Or you might be practicing a stun shot where you just want the cue ball to travel down to the rack area. But you're getting used to controlling the cue ball with 0 rep. So that can be stop, stun, follow, or draw, or even spinning the cue ball left or right. I know you're going to want to advance to one rail positional routes quickly. Think about one rail positional routes in relationship to shot types. So you want to practice your one rail position routes from rail shots and bounce shots, and then separate those from cut shots and wing shots. So let me give you a couple of quick examples. When you're shooting a rail shot and you're playing position just off from this one rail, you're not going to be able to manipulate the cue ball very much between when it hits the object ball and hits the rail. That's a real short distance. So the cue ball is almost always going to take about a 90-degree angle right into the rail. So if you shoot with center ball, that's center on the vertical and horizontal axis, your cue ball should come straight off that rail. So if you want the cue ball to come back this way, you're going to either need to use left English or draw. So in this example, I'll hit below center on the cue ball. That makes the cue ball come back towards me. Or I could hit along the center of the horizontal axis, but with left spin. As you can see, the cue ball's got some spin on it, and that's going to make it behave a little bit differently. So you want to practice those. If I want the cue ball to go forward from perpendicular to the rail in that direction, I either have to use top spin or right spin. So I'll hit this one on the vertical center, but at the top of the cue ball. Or you can use right English. If I'm on the horizontal axis with the right side of the cue ball. Really went to the right. You can do the same thing for your rail shots or your bounce shots off from the long rail. Hitting below center or right English will make the cue ball come back towards me. Hitting above center is going to make the cue ball come a little bit to this side of 90 degrees. If you want it to come farther to the left in this case, you're going to need to shoot at the left side of the cue ball with left spin. And you can get it to really take an angle. You want to practice your one positional routes for your rail and bounce shots separate from your cut and wing shots. So here's a cut shot. The cue ball has a lot longer distance to travel before it gets to the rail. So there's more time for your draw or your follow to take. So you want to set up a shot, maybe mark the table so you can repeat it over and over. So on a center ball hit, the cue ball is going to take that natural line that we've talked about. If you shoot with top spin, the cue ball is going to go to the rail quicker, so it's going to take a shorter angle off that rail in this direction. And if you shoot below center, then the cue ball is going to draw off from that ball and take a wider angle off the ball. Your wing shots are different from your cut shots in that if you're playing one rail position from this shot, the cue ball has to travel a long distance. That gives you a lot of opportunity to manipulate the cue ball. So a stun shot should send the cue ball along the tangent line straight into that rail. But then you can use spin to manipulate it. For example, I'll bring it straight across the table, then with left spin, cue ball goes down table. If I stun it more or less straight across the table with right spin from this side, cue ball go this direction. Playing good one rail position requires really good speed control. You can practice this with the method I'm going to show you now on a variety of shots on the table. So I want to cut this 4-ball in the pocket, and I'm going to use one rail position. So just center ball, maybe a little bit of topspin, and I want to come up straight up table and play position for the 3-ball. So that's easy enough to say. But let's look at the 3-ball. Here's the shot line into the pocket for the 3-ball. If I want to play my cue ball to this side of the shot line, I'm coming short of that position. If I want my cue ball on the other side of the shot line, I'm coming long. So why would that matter? Well, if the next ball that I want to play after the 3 ball is up here, then I want to come short of the shot line, because then I can draw my cue ball off this rail up for that ball. But if the ball I want to play next after the 3 ball, let's say maybe it's here. Well, now I want to come long of the shot line, because then when I cut the 3 ball, my cue ball is going to head in this direction and I can get position on the 1 ball down here. So when you're playing your 1 rail position, set up a ball that you want to shoot next and decide where you want to be. One way to help you is to look at the shot line and put another ball on the shot line. So that helps you visualize where that line is. Now I'm shooting the 4 ball. If I want to come short, I come short of this flow. If I want to come on the long side of the shot line, then I want to come past the 12 ball. So this is about speed control. So I'm just going to hit center ball, and I want short side position. So coming past the 3 ball, but I'm staying on the short side of the shot line. Now I want long side position. So I'm going to come on the same angle with the cue ball, but I want to come past the line. That's how you want to think about playing position from 1 rail. Make a decision on which side of the shot line you want for the next ball. One thing to be aware of, especially on your cut shots, is that the quality of your stroke affects the direction that the cue ball takes off from the object ball. Okay, I'm going to shoot this 10 ball in with a straight high ball, but I'm going to hit this nice and smoothly. So you notice that the cue ball gently followed forward and then took a slight angle forward off from this rail. Now I'll try and set up about the same shot. Now I'm going to shoot above center again, but I'm going to give it more of a stun stroke and kind of strike down on the cue ball a little bit. So you notice the cue ball took a straighter line into the rail and then up table. Then with the same angle, if I use a follow stroke and inside English, so right English, my cue ball not only follows that slight path into the rail at this angle, but the spin complements with the natural spin that the cue ball is picking up off the rail, and I can actually turn it out of the corner. So I'm hitting the cue ball in almost the same spot with a little bit different stroke to get dramatically different results. And that leads us into 2 rail position. You're going to want to get a lot of practice in with your 1 rail positional routes before you move to 2 rail routes. And that's because every 2 rail route is an extension of a 1 rail route. Now, not every 1 rail route ends up being 2 rails. For example, if I cut this 1 ball and just let the cue ball come straight up table, the only way I'm going to hit a second rail is if I hit it hard enough to go all the way up to this rail. So that would be the cue ball traveling from short rail to short rail. But we don't really consider that a 2 rail route. Yeah, it's hitting 2 rails, but a 2 rail route is when the cue ball hits short rail, long rail, or hits the long rail and then the short rail. So in this example, if I want to cut the 7 in and play position on this 14, here's the shot line to the pocket. So if I want to come short of the shot line that's on this side of the shot line, I'll probably just play 1 rail position, off the rail and up here. But if I want to play to the long side of the shot line, then I want to use draw, and I want to go ahead and hit the second rail. I don't want my cue ball to just float up here because I might not hit it hard enough. I want to make sure that I hit the second rail, then I'll be on this side of the shot line. The real power of 2 rail positional routes is that you can find center table. And that's going to impact your position play
for a lot of shots in a lot of variety of games. What am I talking about? Here's center table. It's right in line with the side pockets. I'll try and get this right pretty close to the center of the table. Whenever you have a cut shot and your cue ball is going to the short rail, if your cue ball travels 45 degrees from the object ball to the short rail, the cue ball will go through center table. Let me try and get a 45-degree angle. So that would be about here. So no side spin on the cue ball. Let's see if I can get a 45-degree angle. Cue ball goes through center table. You might think to yourself, well, I don't want to play position to center table. How does that help me? The reason why it helps you is that anytime the cue ball passes through center table on that type of a two-rail route, it'll never scratch. So let's say I want to play position from the 15 to the 9. I know that if my cue ball goes through center table, it'll hit this rail and it won't scratch. And if I'm really nervous, I can play my cue ball a little bit short. So short would be coming off this rail to this side of center table. So now I know for sure I'm going to hit this rail and then come up here for a shot on the 9 ball. So I know that if 45 degrees is here, I want my cue ball to hit here in order to go short. So I'll hit a little bit below center, get a little bit of draw on this cut shot. That way I come short of center table and I hit the rail with no chance of scratching and I have a great shot on the next ball. And of course, you can use this knowledge to play the position long. In this example, these balls are in the way of playing the position I just did. So I want to come on this side of the center of the table. Well, I know that if I come through the center of the table, I won't scratch. That means if I come long on this side of center table, oh, there's a risk of scratching here. So I need to make sure that I come a little bit longer than center table. So now, I know that 45 degrees from the object ball is here. So I better play a little bit to here. So this means I'll put a little bit of topspin on the cue ball. But now my cue ball should come long and come all the way up to the head rail for a shot on the 9 ball. For the purposes of this video, I want to demonstrate just one more two-rail positional route for you to be aware of. Let's say I'm playing position from the 11 to the 12. Just like before, you want to decide which side of the shot line you want to be on. So here's the shot line to the 12 ball. If my cue ball stops on this side of the shot line, that's long. And if it's on this side of the shot line, it's short. So I want to come long if I want to bounce the cue ball off this rail for a ball down table, or if I want to draw the cue ball over here for a ball down there. But I'll want to come short on this side if the next ball I want to play position for is on this rail or up there, because then my cue ball will move this way in a wing shot, or I can come forward for a ball up here. So let's say I want to play short position. So I want to be on that side of the ball. Well, it's a pretty simple matter to put topspin, maybe a touch of right English, to come straight up the table. And then I know that I'll always be on the right side of that ball. So I've got short side position. Now, if I want long side position, I could try to shoot my cue ball one rail and try and come past that shot line. But as long as there's no balls in the way, I know that a 45-degree angle off this cut shot will bring me to center table. Well, that's going to be on this side. My cue ball will always be on the long side of the shot line. So it's a much higher positional route to visualize that 45-degree angle and just send my cue ball along that line. I've got the long side position automatically, and I have position from here to here to here to here and even closer. Here's the same shot, and I want to get short side position, but there's a bunch of balls in the way.
Well, same thing. I know that 45 degrees gets me to center table, but I want to be on this side of the shot line. So I better come tighter in the corner past 45 degrees so that my cue ball comes short of center table. And if I get the speed control right, I can get on the short side of this 12 ball. So I want a nice smooth draw stroke to bring it tight in this corner. That way I can get across the shot line and get short side position on that ball. The same thing applies for 3-rail positional routes. All 3-rail positional routes are an extension of 2-rail routes. So here's an example. I want to play position from the 4 ball to the 11. It's going to be really hard to get my cue ball here, and I'll know that because the 2-rail route out of the corner, the center table is natural, but if I come short out of this corner, I'm heading right at that ball, so I know I can't get over here. But I could still play through center table or maybe a little bit short and then play to the 3rd rail. You're using your rails as a gauge of speed. So I don't want to just float my cue ball up here. I want to make sure I get my cue ball to the 3rd rail. Then I know that I'll have the cue ball far enough to have a shot on this 11. So I want to play it just a little bit short. 45 degrees is here, so let's draw it just a little bit on this side of 45 degrees. This time I want to hit it with speed just to make sure that I hit this 3rd rail. As long as I hit that 3rd rail, then I'll know that I've hit the cue ball hard enough and I don't stop here where I've got a thin cut. I'm sure you know where I'm going with this one. I got balls in the way, I can't play short position. But I can play long position and come off the 3rd rail. The shot that I just demonstrated went short rail, long rail, long rail. So those were natural rails and playing into a reverse rail. This time I'll have 3 running rails. So this is a natural 3-rail route. Short rail, long rail, short rail. I want to hit this with enough speed to come long of center table, come off this rail, and almost all the way, or even all the way to the 4th rail to have an easy shot on that 11 ball. So 45 degrees is here. Let's come to this side of 45 degrees and make sure that we hit it with enough speed to come off that 3rd rail. I'm coming off the 3rd rail toward the next ball that I want to pocket. In the future, I'll make a much more in-depth video that focuses just on 2 and 3 rail routes that start with the cue ball hitting the short rail. The 3-rail route that goes long rail, short rail, long rail is more rare in pool, except for this shot. And this comes up quite a lot. I'll give you 2 examples. Let's say I want to cut the 5 ball and play position on the 4. Well, I don't want to just go across table because I might scratch. And if I hit the rail here and come across, I might end up way up here and have a really long shot. We can just draw the cue ball into the corner. As long as I hit deep on this rail, then I'll hit the short rail and come diagonally across the table. Now I want to hit it with enough speed to hit the 3rd rail. We're always playing position to the rail and off. Don't feel like you have to hit this ball really hard. Smooth stroke so you get a nice smooth draw deep into that corner. So it turns what looked like hard position into something very natural. Here's the other example of the exact same 3-rail route. This time I've got an easy shot on the 15 on the side. I want to play position on the 4, but these balls are in the way. I can't just draw the cue ball over here. Same thing, I want to go deep in the corner and come across and hit the 3rd rail. This time I need to use topspin on the cue ball. I don't want to have any kind of a stun stroke because my cue ball might come too deep and either scratch or hit the points. So I want to go ahead and use topspin. The cue ball kind of curves to the rail and then have some right spin because the right spin will make the cue ball turn long off this rail and long off from the short rail to come diagonally across to the 3rd rail, and I'll never come near the side pocket scratch. Well, that should look something like this. worry, it's not going to scratch. I'm going to wrap up this video with tip number 5. And it's about how to pocket the ball as well as play position when the cue ball is very close to the object ball. Before I do that, leave a comment in the comment section if you enjoyed this video. Realize that this is just a primer. I'm just laying the foundation and establishing some terms and some concepts. I'm going to make more videos in the future where I'll take individual topics that I've talked about in this video and make a complete 10-minute long video and dive deep into that subject. So have you ever had trouble cutting a ball where the object ball is real close to the cue ball? You come over here and you sight that line and you try to see that point, and you come over here and you can't quite feel it. How can you get a better sight on just where you need to aim this ball? Here's the trick. Pocketing pool balls is about perspective. So when you have a cut shot like this one, when we practice, we get real used to what I call the sight picture. And that's because when I get down on this shot, the cue ball and the object ball are close to the same size visually. So you can really get a good idea of where to hit this object ball to pocket it. But when the cue ball's back here and I'm trying to cut that ball, now when I get down on the shot, the cue ball is this big and the object ball way in the distance is tinier. So it becomes a perspective issue. We can kind of deal with it when the cue ball is farther from the object ball. It's easier to deal with. But when the cue ball is close, both balls are exactly the same size, but because they're so close, it's hard to get that perspective and see exactly where to aim. Here's the way to fix it. Change the perspective of the shot. What that means is this: you'll sight it the way you normally would, any shot, and you're getting a good idea of where to hit the four ball. Now you hold that point in your mind and step back away from the table and away from the cue ball. So I'll have that point on the four ball in mind, and I'm off your camera, but I'm sighting it from way back here. And why is that? Is because from back here I have a better perspective. So from back here, I've got a much better handle on where to strike the four ball. So now I've got my cue tip pointed at it. So now I can come back into the shot and get my head close to the cue ball, and I can much easier tell where I need to hit it to pocket that ball. So that's the change your perspective, get back from the shot.